So first up, what's in smoke from a wildfire? The pollutant we're most concerned about is fine particulate matter. It is a criteria air pollutant. That's what we measure in Missoula. We have some other things we monitor that are, like we do measure ozone, but our primary concern as a pollutant in Missoula is fine particulate matter. It's produced by woody biomass combustion. So in the winter we get it from wood stoves and fireplaces, and we also get it from any kind of combustion, so you get it from vehicles as well. And then in the summer, our primary source is wildfires. So I'm going to talk to you most about particulate matter, but there are a lot of other nasty things in wildfire smoke. This is a really short list of the chemicals that are produced when you light something on fire. A lot of these are the volatile organic compounds that you first notice when something is burning. That campfire smell you get is from a lot of these chemicals that kind of make your eyes sting, your throat feel gross, and kind of give you a headache. So there's a lot of really nasty stuff in wildfire smoke. There's also carbon monoxide, which is mostly a concern for folks who are on the fire line fighting the fire, because it typically doesn't travel very well. But for the wildland firefighters who are up there, especially doing mop-up with their faces right in the smoke, carbon monoxide is a real concern for them as a pollutant. And then in addition to the volatile organic compounds, there's also carcinogens such as polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. So wildfire smoke is bad business. When we're talking about fine particulate matter, when we measure it, we measure PM2.5. That particulate matter is 2.5 microns in diameter and smaller. Wildfire smoke is that and smaller fraction. These are typically less than 1 micrometer in diameter. This is so small that when you breathe it in, it bypasses all your natural defenses and can actually pass into your bloodstream, where it starts to cause some problems for the person who breathed it in. You do have a lot of natural defenses against larger particles. You know, you have cilia in your nose, then you have mucus to help capture and trap a lot of pollutants you can then expel out. But these fine particles just bypass all of that, and they can cause a problem. And they're super, super tiny. And that's why we're really concerned about it. When you're talking about the health concerns people notice during a wildfire smoke event, the first thing people notice, what probably the most people notice, is that stinging eyes, the headache, the trouble sleeping. And a lot of that is caused by the chemicals in smoke. But the more serious health concerns you see, especially in a sensitive population or somebody who already has a pre-existing health condition, are exacerbated and worsening asthma attacks, reduced lung function. You see an increased risk of heart attack and stroke, and you also do see increased mortality. During a smoke event, people who would not otherwise die will succumb because their systems are taking such a brunt of this. This is typically folks who already have a pre-existing health condition that is greatly exacerbated by the wildfire smoke. You see increased hospitalizations and people going to emergency departments. You see increased dispensations of asthma medication especially. Interestingly, typically the first health effects you see are those respiratory effects, kind of the acute suddenly there's smoke, and then you have people having difficulty breathing if they have COPD. If you don't know what COPD is, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. If you were ever a fan of the original Star Trek, COPD is what killed Spock. Leonard Nimoy died from COPD some years ago. It's a very serious lung disease where you just lose lung function over time. And when you put in this particulate matter, it can really exacerbate those symptoms. After a smoke event is when you start seeing, on kind of a bit of a delay, you see more of the cardiac effects where you see this increased risk of heart attack and stroke. And there's some different thoughts about why that is, but typically right first you see the respiratory effects, and then later you see the cardiac effects. And again, this is mostly for people who are already really sensitive to smoke, but there are a lot of people who are sensitive to smoke. For example, children. Children's lungs are still developing. You don't typically finish developing your lungs until about 18 years old. Children also breathe in more air per volume body weight than an adult will, and they are more likely to be running around with their mouths open, sucking in a lot of air. Their dose is going to be higher than an adult's dose, and it is very harmful to children. There was a recent study that came out in California that showed from a wildfire event in California, the hospitalizations for asthma went up, pretty much across the board, but the highest increase was in children ages 0 to 4 and 0 to 1, where kids were having increased asthma effects. So that's where we're very concerned about children's exposure to wildfire smoke. People with chronic health problems, this is your respiratory and cardiac disease, and it is the entire spectrum of cardiac disease. It is everything from like a congenital heart defect to high blood pressure. It's really any kind of a cardiac issue. And one thing to keep in mind that I haven't quite mentioned yet is the reason that like what particulate matter does when you breathe it in, it sets off an inflammatory response. It's really a systemic response of your body reacting to this invasion of these fine particles that can have any kind of chemical makeup in them. We just define them by their size, not by what's actually in them. And it sets off inflammation within your body. And one of the interesting symptoms somebody reported to me from the 17 fires was a couple living in City Lake, and their joints were swelling up. And well, yeah, that does kind of make sense. It's a systemic inflammatory response, and so you do see a lot of those biomarkers, and also it kind of explains why everybody feels crummy. Obviously not everybody's going to go to the hospital during a smoke event. I have never been to the hospital. I've used my inhaler a lot more during a smoke event, but I haven't taken myself to a clinic or to a hospital. But everybody starts to feel really crummy. And I think about when you're sick and how you feel really crummy, and your body is setting off, like a fever is inflammation your body is creating to fight off the infection that you have. Well, your body's trying to fight off these fine particles, but your immune system is designed to kill bugs, viruses and bacteria. It's not designed to kill particles. So your best option is to get out of the smoke. And then, so our sensitive group includes children, people with pre-existing health conditions, the elderly, because their systems have already been through a lot, and you don't really want to be throwing more at them, and pregnant women. There has been some studies that have shown that when you have a woman who is pregnant during a smoke event, there is a potential for decreased birth weight. We aren't really sure what the long-term effects of it are, because this is a relatively new field of study. The university is going to be doing a study on pregnant women, and long-term follow-up, I believe, is what they're working on now. So there's going to be more information going into the future. But it is like 30% of the population. That's a lot of people. Like Missoula, we have about 100,000 people in the county. That's like 30,000 people just in the county that fall into this category. So it's a lot. So one of the things that we're really kind of realizing is when we push out these health messages for wildfire smoke, we tell people, stay indoors, make indoor space available, hold your practice inside, have recess inside. And that is great if the inside air is clean. And we found out that that's not actually a guarantee, because that was our general thought that it must be. In 2017, Amy from Climate Smart University, there she is, they put some air monitors in several buildings around town just to see what the indoor air quality was like. And there are some places that we would hope would have clean air, that we would tell people go to these places that did not have clean indoor air. The public library, for example, you basically might as well put outside. That is, which one is the light? Oh, that's the teal line. The senior center.
You just bounced yourself back.
Oopsies. Touchscreens. There you go. The senior center, again, matched the outside air quality. Some places did better than others. The red line right there is the high school gym. The black line was our outdoor air. So you want to be below this black line. And then this dotted line is the regulatory standard for fine particulate matter. We always want to be below this dotted line, but clearly during a wildfire smoke event, that can be challenging. But then if you zoom in on a day, here we have this black line is again the outdoor air. The yellow line is the public library this time. The red line was the senior center. The blue line was a fitness center that had MERV 8. You're going to learn all about MERV after me. And then this purple line was Amy's house. And Amy does not have air conditioning. So she was opening her windows at night to let the cool air in, which is very important because you don't want to have heat exhaustion. But then she closed her windows, turned on her air cleaner, and it had the best air in Missoula.
Of the 5 we measured.
Well, yeah, but I mean, look at this. Look at how good that is. That is great. So that is what it's very instructive for us. Here's a central air handling system with some filtration. Here's some central air systems without really any decent filtration. And then we have portable air cleaners in a house without any central air system moving air. So It was instructive to us, and then I became obsessed with how can we make sure people have cleaner indoor air. And I think that's all I've got. We're going to hold questions till the end. We're going to go ahead and let Dominic come up here from McKinstry. He's going to give you some great information about HVAC systems and how to use filters to create clean indoor air spaces. And following him will be Amy, and she's going to talk about portable air cleaners. So we're getting into the practical application part. After that, those two talks, we're going to have plenty of times, I think, for questions and discussion. And you're always welcome to stay late and pester us if you want more information. So, right.